Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the Book Brood. This is going to be part one of our
April
wrap-up.
Yep.
Yes. How many things did you read in April?
19.
I read 23, so it's going to be a big one.
Yeah, so we're going to split this in half, and we did a very short owl wrap-up because we both participated in the Owl Readathon.
Yeah, so if you want to just quickly see our owls, just go check that one out. All right, the first thing I read in April was We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda and Adichie Ngozi. This was a great essay on common sense things just on feminist ideals. It did hit a lot of notes that got very hard-pressed in Not That Bad, that I read the month prior, that's edited by Roxanne Gay. So it was kind of just a quick recap, but I am still glad that I read that one. Okay, so the next one I read, I did on ebook, and this was My Lord Hades by Stephanie Berman. This was a Hades and Persephone retelling. I've really been getting back into the Greek mythos and everything lately. I was big into that as a kid, actually. Some of the just earlier readers with the mythology and stuff. So getting back into that, been reading some stuff with the kids and everything, and using it as a retelling for my owls. It was an interesting take they did on this one. They actually had Eris, who is the goddess of discord and like strife, was apparently Hades' mother in this one. So they did it so he wasn't an actual child of Kronos, and I think they did it so that he was actually more powerful than Zeus, because that, put a kind of different spin on the whole story and everything. Kind of made Zeus to be a kind of quirky, sort of, doofy character.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The first thing that I read, my retelling, was Lost Boy, The True Story of Captain Hook by Christina Henry. It felt very genuine to the original story of Peter Pan. The original Peter Pan is not a great guy. He's a very, very selfish character and doesn't care who else he hurts so long as he's having fun in the moment, right? And I think Christina Henry did a great job of taking that character and seeing him through the eyes of one of his oldest friends, who then becomes his enemy. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it.
You did really like that one.
Yeah.
Talked about that one a lot.
Yeah.
Reading it. The next 4 things I read in April was the Bought by the Billionaire Quartet, and this was on the Audible Romance package, so it was pretty easy to just churn these ones out.
Keep going?
Yeah, they were pretty short too, so this one had a, twins, mistaken identity, one, playing weird pranks on the other, which, wouldn't be okay in real,
I remember you telling me about this.
But, I guess it kind of works out in the end.
So did all 4 follow the same characters?
They did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one big
Storyline.
arc, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was the thing.
I read volumes 1 through 3 of Rat Queens this month by Curtis J. Weeb and Rock Upchurch. And I really enjoyed this. I've heard great things, and I think it definitely lived up to that. This is a story about a group of mercenaries, basically, 4 women who, they're very loudmouth, crass. One loves hallucinogenics, and one is a total alcoholic, and they all have very serious issues from their past that they're all running from, and they're just a close-knit group of friends and just their shenanigans that they get into. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
The next 3 things I read in April was the Perfect Trilogy by Julie Ortolan. This was Almost Perfect, Just Perfect, and Too Perfect, and this followed 3 friends.
Too perfect.
Yeah. Oh, it was.
Was it perfect?
It was a bit too perfect at the end of that. At the end of that 3rd one. But this followed 3 friends who, communicate with each other, and each of their falling in love story. I enjoyed Just Perfect. The second one the best because that had one of my more favorite themes, which is the melting of the Ice Queen's heart. So, yeah.
Total Frozen moment.
Yeah, absolutely, because it took place at a ski resort too, so perfect, right?
It's so perfect. Just perfect.
Just perfect.
You read a lot of romance this month.
Yeah. I discovered that there's this whole area of books that are very easy to consume.
Yes.
And it's very easy to keep track of the characters, and they make you feel all this.
Wait, you don't have to push through the first 800 pages before it finally starts coming together?
No, it doesn't. You don't have to immerse yourself in all sorts of invented techno language and technology and things, and it's an
Wait. Are you getting into character-driven stories? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, it must be, because there's really not much of a
not much
plot in many of these. Yeah.
I'm loving it. I'm loving that you're loving it.
I am loving it, and I love that you love it. So
I subscribed us to the Audible romance package for you because you were just going crazy.
Yeah, and you just made it worse. So
I am here to support you. Okay, I'm enabling you.
You are,
but
and you know what? That's okay, because I realized that for 30 years of my life, I read one genre pretty much. So
yeah, it's good to branch out. The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. This was one I used for my owls, and this is a book I've tried to read several times, and for one reason or another, I've just put it down. I really should have read this closer to when I read The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. Because it did feel very YA, but I do really enjoy Holly Black's writing. You're reading Spiderwick with the kids right now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I really enjoy Holly Black's writing, and I think she does middle grade and YA voice really well.
And I like the way that I like the sentences that she writes for a middle grade. It's a more flowy, kind of wordy sentence that just kind of gets you to a bit of a step up in just comprehension, I feel like, which I think is helpful for the kids at the level they're at right now.
So, The Darkest Part of the Forest, I did enjoy it, but not as much as I would have if I would have read it a couple of years ago. It is about this small town that's surrounded by a forest that has the Fae in it, and these two kids who grow up there, and they're just used to magical things happening, and before you leave the house, you have to make sure you've got certain herbs or berries in your pockets, and you've got a brass ring on, or just random protection things. And both of the siblings fall in love with this fae that is in a glass coffin, and they grow up telling stories about, one day he's gonna wake up and we're gonna be together or whatever. And it was charmingly, YA, but then also it's the dangerous, scary fae.
Yeah.
Which was good. So Holly Black wrote The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, which was about vampires, and they were scary vampires, and I like that she's doing that with traditional monsters and making sure that they're still scary.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing I read in April was a Jason and the Argonauts, more a kid's version of it. It still took us, the children and I, several nights to read through, but I did really enjoy that it did not use kid gloves on the story. A lot of the Jason stories end with him getting the fleece and becoming the hero, but how it actually ends is that he revels in being the hero, eventually becomes unfaithful to his wife, and the god that gave him the most, or goddess who gave him the most favor, was Hera, who is the goddess of marriage and children, and it does not, as many people know, does not look favorable to adulterers and cheaters and such, so... and he totally fell out of favor with the gods and died a pauper on the streets, essentially.
The next thing I read was the graphic adaptation of The Handmaid's Tale by Renee Nault. And I really enjoyed this. I think that it did a great job at smoothing over some of the plot points in the novel that were a little less believable. I haven't watched the show yet, and I have heard that it does a similar thing, made it feel a little more believable, but I do know that a lot of people had difficulty suspending their belief with the novel, but I highly recommend picking up the graphic novel. It was really good.
I hope the sequel does not continue with Offred. I hope it goes with completely different characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I think it ended
I would love
very well.
Yeah. I would love if it followed her daughter or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't we tried to watch the show together.
We made it
and
maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah, the scene that it started with was just one of the most painful in the entire story.
When the family gets ripped apart.
And I just couldn't hang.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so next thing I read in April was Arpeggio Blue Steel Volume 13 by Arc Performance. This is my favorite running manga series right now, probably very close with Attack on Titan. But this is a story about self-aware, intelligent weapons, and they take the form of boats, military boats from the World War II era. And I love that era of just naval combat and the ships and designs and things like that. And so the futuristic setting with that in here is really great. So just continuing along with that story. Too much to explain right now in the plot. So yeah.
It's volume 13. Yeah. So the next three things I'm going to talk about are books 1.5, 3, and 4 of Tales from Verena. This is the first book, The Lightning Struck Heart, by T.J. Klune. 1.5 was the tragic life of Lady Tina de Silva, which I found on T.J. Klune's blog or website or whatever, and it was lovely. I love the fact that the greatest wizard of all time, his arch nemesis, is a teenage girl, and it's just so funny. She's so catty. And then book 3 was The Consumption of Magic, continuing on with the story arc where Sam is fighting the big bad. And then the final one was A Wish Upon the Stars. I'm really glad I continued with this series because I think book 2 was the weakest in the series. I really did not like it, A Destiny of Dragons. But I loved the first one, and I think the third, The Consumption of Magic, was probably the strongest in the entire series. So, highly recommend that if you like very crass humor, very catty, snarky humor. I really enjoyed those. And I listened to them, sorry, I threw my pen at you. I listened to them on audio, and that was wonderful too.
Yes, the narrator did a great job.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, book 2 he did not narrate very well, but the rest of them, yes.
Okay, the next things I read in April was books 1 and 2 of the Wicked Play series by Linda Acher. So this was Bonds of Trust and Bonds of Need. This follows club owners of a sex club and their stories of romance. I was enjoying these. I was liking the characters enough. Got to the third book, and the love dynamic was one that I'm not used to. I gave it a shot. I don't know. I had to put it down.
You were telling me about the reviews for that one,
right? Yeah. So I was excited for the female character that was going to be in this one because I had liked the bits of her that had been in the first two and was excited to get to it. But this was a menage romance, 2 males and a female, and all of the reviews were essentially like, this would have been great if the woman had not been there. And it's like, okay, well, that's great that my favorite character was written out of her own story there. Yeah. So, okay. So, maybe I'll give it a probably not.
I think the last thing I have to talk about is Fox 8 by George Saunders. And my notes for this are, what the fuck did I just read? Not for me. And misspelled words, poor grammar. This was it was a really short story, illustrated, about a fox that learns to speak human, and he is using a typewriter to type this story, and it's a giant play on the English language and how it doesn't make sense, right, to the way things sound and the way things are spelled. Mm-hmm. But it's his story about humans coming in and tearing down the forest and building a shopping mall, and he's just going around trying to be friends with humans, and then his best friend gets murdered by humans, and he has to run away from humans, and oh my god, it was horrible. It was so bad. If I did not need the land animal on the cover to complete my owls, I would not have finished it. I hate read the entire thing. Yeah. I hated it.
I hate read a few things, yeah.
I went and I looked at the reviews to see, okay, maybe I'm just not looking into the literature enough. Maybe this is a bigger story, and I'm just seeing the surface level, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's all symbolic and everything. No, all of the reviews are, oh, this was such a fun story about a fox learning to speak human. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got into a big argument with the kids about the Juna B. Jones books and how I thought it was not proper that there were misspellings in the book, and they were trying to argue with me that she was a kindergarten and first grader, and I'm like, that's no excuse for a published book for having misspellings, especially if grade school kids are going to be reading it.
Right.
And yeah. That's my soapbox there.
Yeah, as I was reading it, I was thinking of you, and I was thinking how, because I'm a sight reader and you're a phonetic reader, mm-hmm. that you would have hated this book even more than I did. Mm-hmm. Because there are some words that were spelled so different that I had to sit there and sound it out over and over and like say it out loud and try and hear it, and I'm like, it doesn't sound like, and it had too few of letters, and then finally I was like, oh, it's trying to say mouse, even though it's spelled like MOS or something like that, and I'm like, why? No. Ugh. No, I hated that.
Yeah. All right, so should we wrap that up here? We're at about 22 minutes.
I think we should, and then we'll do a part 2.
All right, we will see you in part 2 of April wrap-up for 2019.
Bye, guys.